It's finally here. You guys asked for it. You want to know, what does it cost to build a 4,500 gallon DIY aquarium? Well, I promised you I'd make the video, and here it is. We're going to break down all the costs that it took me to build that 33-foot long 4,500 gallon DIY aquarium with a wetland filter. So what are we going to do? We're going to break down all the stages of the build, and I'm going to show you all the costs with each stage of the build. We're going to keep a running total, and we're going to get a total cost at the end. What does it cost from soup to nuts to build a 4,500 gallon aquarium? Keeping in mind, this was built in the second half of 2023. Over the years, prices changed. When I made my 3,000 gallon, it would cost me twice as much now. Somehow 7% of inflation means double the prices. I wish that worked with my paycheck. When I got a 5% raise in my pay, I wish it doubled my paycheck, but somehow it doesn't work that way. But who knows? I don't know economics. I know aquarium building. So I'm going to walk you through the whole build, each stage, show you what each stage cost, and all the major components of each stage, total it up, and yeah, you'll know what it takes. If you ever go insane and decide to build a 3,300 gallon aquarium like me, you'll know how hard it'll set the purse back. And just as a disclaimer, if any of you are thinking about building an aquarium like this, and you're married or have a significant other, or you live with somebody, don't watch this video. Just build it and then worry about the cost later. I honestly had no idea what this cost until I started making this video. I never totaled up anything. I just threw all the receipts in a hat and waited till this video to total it all up. So let's find out how bad the damage was. So starting off with the foundation, basically the framing and the plywood for the foundation of the aquarium. We're using 2x6x10s and two types of plywood, a 1/2 inch OSB for the underlayment and a 1/2 inch hardwood plywood for the top surface. This is in lieu of a 3/4 inch birch, which I normally use, but the prices of those were crazy, so this was a much more economical solution than that. But you can see we're eating up just a ton of 2x6s and a ton of screws and a ton of construction adhesive. We're going to use our first 25 pounds of 3-inch screws and then 24 tubes of construction adhesive. But as you can tell, I mean, for how important it is for these materials, especially using the construction adhesive and using proper 3-inch screws, they're really not that expensive for the size of the aquarium. We're $815 in, but we've got a very solid base for a gigantic aquarium. This is a lot of material and a lot of structure. So, even though it's $815, if you're building something this big, it's a pretty good start, pretty good amount of progress on the build for what we've invested in it so far. And using the cheaper OSB underneath the hardwood plywood definitely saved a lot of money than doing the normal build, the normal way I would build it, so can't complain there. But yeah, we're off to a good start, both with what we build and how much it's cost. It starts to build up, it looks so much more substantial than just a platform, which is the foundation. But you can also see where it starts chewing up some materials and then, thus chewing up some money. A lot of 2x6s get used in this portion of the build, and the nice thing is it's pretty obvious visually where they're all going, because this thing is gigantic, and so it's sucking up 2x6s and screws and construction adhesive like there's no tomorrow. But you can see we've got the base walls up and sort of the base framing in the front of the aquarium for where the windows are going to go, and that's again, you see tripling up on 2x6s, so they're just going like no tomorrow. And of course, framing in the windows for the actual glass and everything, more lumber, so it just keeps adding up. So you can see we're over $1,000 just in 2x6s and plywood, and then this is where I've counted the 50 pounds of 3-inch screws in addition to the 25 pounds from the first section, so and another 24 tubes of construction adhesive because it really got soaked up into this point. And basically where a lot of that goes is actually in the plywood installation. There's so much adhesive and screws that go into that, the plywood. Basically every single 2x6 stud is screwed and glued, from top to bottom for every single sheet of plywood. So it is quite a bit of materials, but we're adding up. We're over $2,000 now, but it does look like something. So at this point in the build, it seems, pretty balanced for what you have and what it costs, Filling, sanding, and fiberglassing. Not my favorite part of the build by any stretch of the imagination, but as you can see, cost-wise, it's not that expensive. I mean, considering this is a massive aquarium, and I fiberglassed the entire thing, all the walls, the bottom, the front, the corners multiple times, and again, not just one coat. There's multiple coats of fiberglass on this entire beast, and $800-900 to give this thing an enormous amount of strength beyond just what you get with the structure and the pond and the two-part epoxy. I mean, fiberglassing truly is the stage of the build that makes this thing bulletproof, that makes it strong as heck. So, when it comes to dollars and cents, it's a no-brainer. It's a very cost-effective way to make your tank incredibly strong. But it's a heck of a lot of work. It's nasty work. It's not fun. But you know what? Once you're done, it's beautiful. Okay, just like the fiberglassing part of the build, the pond armor, the two-part epoxy, I mean, this is huge. This is the waterproofer. You're going to have multiple coats of this on here, and as you'll see in this video, there's a bright blue color, which is the undercoat, and the top coat's going to be black. And with the undercoat, you can find whatever the cheapest color is and use that and save some money, because it's going to get covered up anyways as you build up the layers and have your final top coat on there. But yeah, you can see, I mean, we're about $1,100-1,200 worth of epoxy, and then a couple $100 worth of paint kits and everything. And you'll see, like when I look down at the buckets, like when everything is covered in this two-part epoxy, it's worthless. You can't really reuse it, so you get a bunch of disposable paint kits and brushes and everything, and just throw them away after you use them, unfortunately. But yeah, this is obviously what makes it waterproof, and when you build up all the layers of epoxy and you feel how strong it is, how thick it is, and how bulletproof the aquarium is with this type of build, you even see like doing the top, to make that top waterproof. To me, this is money well spent, and I wouldn't go for a cheaper alternative. For anyone who's going, how did you use 48 tubes of silicone? Yeah, I think you can see where it all went. That is a giant gasket plus a sealer bead, but it's super important. It's super important to have this properly sealed, super important to get the right type of glass, to get that half-inch thick tempered glass. There's a lot of water pressure back there, and the last thing you want is that thing blowing out and taking your knees out. That wouldn't be good. I mean, ask Ray. He knows. You don't want that glass blowing your knees out. But this is, it's an expensive part of the build, but again, it's money well spent if you want to keep the water in the aquarium and not on your floor. So for this type of build, tempered glass is amazing. Because it's on a floating gasket, it doesn't suffer from the limitations of using tempered glass on a regular glass tank. There's no pinch point, so you just get all the strength for no detriment. Just way to go. So the installation of the Riverbank and the cross braces is another section of the build where the cost is really low compared to how important these aspects are to the build. So obviously the cross braces, that's part of the structure. It's keeping the tank from bowing out. For a few $100s for heavy duty bolts, stainless steel lag bolts and doubled up 2x4s, money well spent. And of course the Riverbank. This is a huge part of the filtration system. The reason I included this is because just like how I included the Wetland filter, this is a major part of this build, and you see that for a little bit of cost, you're getting a massive amount of filtration and nutrient export from the aquarium, and the combination of the Riverbank and the Wetland filter, it really truly is the integral part of the filtration system for this aquarium. So money well spent all day long, and again, keep in mind this is a huge aquarium too. So all right, the Wetland filter. If you're looking at that and saying, what are 3 scoops? Well, it's 3 scoops with a front end loader full of rocks, and you definitely want to get them delivered. It's worth the $30 all day long. I moved enough rocks. Last thing I want to do is have to move them from the store to my house. I did quite a bit of moving once they were here. But so those are our 3 scoops of aggregate, and that is the filtration, the biological mechanical filtration, our Wetland filter. And then there's our big boy Wetland filter with our drain pipes and our U-line extra strong milk crates. This is the thing let's call it $1,000 for the filter for an aquarium of this size. Think about buying a sump or canisters or whatever for much smaller tanks that filter a fraction of what this thing filters. This Wetland filter has an enormous amount of biological surface, has an enormous amount of mechanical filtration capability, and it'll last forever. So if you think about the price of it versus what you're getting, yes, there's a lot of legwork, a lot of labor that goes into it, but once you've built it, it is an amazing filter for an extremely cheap price when it's all in the scheme of things. Okay, on to plumbing and the return pump. So the theme here is I'm including everything that it takes to have the aquarium run. So the Wetland filter, the Riverbank, and the plumbing. So this is because the cost of the aquarium was built around these techniques, so that's why I'm including them and not, any of the decorations or anything like that, but the things that make this aquarium design work the way it works. Obviously, the big one here is the $800 for the 4 pumps. They're humongous pumps. I got them on sale, so I did save quite a bit of money, like 20% on each one. But again, it's like the Wetland filter. They're extremely powerful. They're high quality, and for what they're able to achieve, it's really a small price to pay for the longevity of this tank, how big the tank is, and how efficient these pumps are and how much water they push. So again, worth it all day long. The cost would go down obviously with a smaller tank, but for this size tank, I think this price is actually amazing. All right, lighting and electrical, I could have left this off, but I'm including it for the same reason I included the Riverbank and the Wetland and the pumps and the plumbing, is that for this build, this lighting is integral part of it because it's suspended up on the ceiling, shining back at that riverbank. So not only is it lighting the aquarium, but it also needs to be lighting the immersed grown plants on the riverbank. You need to have very long power strips spreading the plugs out all on the back of the tank because of the sheer length of the tank. So, it wasn't required that I do something like this for this type of build. But as you can tell with lighting, there's 1,000 different ways you could go, and there's 1,000 different prices you could pay. But here's a really good example that's working for me so far, and it's very economical. So, like a lot of the other parts, like with the filtration and everything, considering the size of the build, this is an extremely economical way to light this tank and the riverbank. All right, well, we've answered the age-old question. How much does it cost to build a 33-foot long, 4,500 gallon aquarium? Well, it costs less than $10,000, a little over $9,500, which, and honestly, for this size aquarium, is an amazing price. Yes, it takes a lot of sweat equity. It takes some construction skills, some construction know-how, and it takes finding the right materials, watching YouTube videos and seeing other people who've done it and emulating their techniques and the materials they use. But when it's all said and done, for this size aquarium, it is an extremely affordable price. If you try to get this size aquarium built any other way, go out there and find someone to build you this using any materials you want. It doesn't matter. They won't come anywhere close to this price. And if you think they're going to get like an acrylic aquarium or something like that of this size, you will be blown away by the price. I mean, it will be not a little bit more. It'll be a multiple of 10s to 20x more. I mean, it'll be astronomical. So when it's all said and done, I think this is not only do you get a very, very high quality aquarium that's going to stand the test of time. A lot of people ask, how long do these builds last? Well, if you build it right, it'll last an eternity. It'll last a really long time. And you also get something that is affordable, for the size. And you get something that is incredibly strong, especially for the price. And, when you got that much water pressure back there, that much water, the last thing you want is that glass blowing out into your knees and flooding your house, You don't want Ray telling you he told you so. So you build it right, you use the right materials, and as you see, for a little over $9,500, you too can have a 33-foot long, 4,500 gallon aquarium. So obviously not something the typical person would build, but if you're insane like I am, or if you're trying to get your spouse to divorce you, then maybe you should consider building one of these, And in all seriousness though, when it's done, it is amazing. Sitting in front of this tank and just looking at it, you don't even have fish in it yet. And I love it. This thing, I cannot wait to get this tank up and running. And for me, now that it's built, it was worth the time and definitely well worth the money.